After the age of 60, many men notice that erections are no longer as firm, no longer as reliable, or do not last long enough, even though the desire is still there. And most men quietly accept this as normal aging. But what I want you to understand is that while aging does change the body, it does not suddenly switch off erection ability. What it actually does is weaken blood flow, slow repair, and expose nutrient deficiencies that were hidden earlier. And when these are corrected, the body often responds much better than people expect. Over the years, I have seen men in their early 60s completely lose confidence, avoid intimacy, and even feel emotionally distant from their partners, not because love or desire was gone, but because the body was no longer cooperating. And what hurts them most is not the physical issue, but the silent belief that this is the end, and that belief is often wrong. To understand erections after 60, you must first understand one key medical truth. An erection is not a sexual act, it is a vascular event. It depends on healthy blood vessels, relaxed smooth muscles, intact nerves, adequate nitric oxide, and proper hormonal signaling. And among all these factors, blood flow is the most important, because without strong blood flow into the penis, no amount of desire, fantasy, or stimulation can create hardness. Now, here is where aging comes in. After 60, blood vessels naturally lose elasticity. The inner lining of the arteries, called the endothelium, becomes less responsive, inflammation increases, circulation slows, and small arteries, especially those supplying the penis, are affected first because they are much narrower than heart arteries, which is why erectile problems often appear years before heart disease symptoms, acting as an early warning sign of declining vascular health. In my practice, I repeatedly notice a pattern. Men come expecting a strong tablet that will force an erection, but when we look deeper, we find that their bodies are lacking the basic internal support required for blood vessels to open properly, and the most common, most ignored deficiency I see in men over 60 is vitamin D deficiency. And this is where the misunderstanding begins, because most people still think of vitamin D as only a bone vitamin, something related to calcium or fractures. But in reality, vitamin D behaves more like a hormone than a vitamin, influencing blood vessels, inflammation, nitric oxide production, insulin sensitivity, immune balance, and hormone receptor function, all of which directly affect erection quality. Let me explain this in a simple way. Inside your blood vessels, including those supplying the penis, there is a delicate lining that controls how easily the vessel relaxes and fills with blood, and vitamin D plays a critical role in keeping this lining healthy and responsive. When vitamin D is low, this lining becomes stiff and inflamed. Blood vessels fail to expand fully, and blood cannot be trapped efficiently inside the penile tissue, leading to soft or short-lasting erections. I have seen this repeatedly in men who otherwise appear healthy, walk regularly, eat reasonably well, and yet struggle with erections because internally their vascular system is undernourished. One patient in his early 60s came to me feeling frustrated and embarrassed, saying that he could sometimes get an erection but lose it midway, which deeply affected his confidence. His blood sugar was borderline, blood pressure controlled, cholesterol slightly elevated, nothing alarming on the surface, but his vitamin D levels were severely low, something he had never tested before. After correcting this deficiency gradually and safely, along with basic lifestyle adjustments, he returned after a few months with a visible change in posture and confidence, telling me that not only had his erections improved, but his energy levels were better, his mood was more stable, and his sleep quality had improved. And this is something I see often. When the foundation improves, multiple systems benefit, not just sexual health. Another important aspect most men don't realize is that vitamin D influences nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for telling blood vessels to relax. Nitric oxide is essential for erections, and its production declines with age, inflammation, dehydration, poor sleep, and nutrient deficiency. Vitamin D supports nitric oxide availability by reducing vascular inflammation and improving endothelial function, and this is why men who correct vitamin D deficiency often notice better morning erections over time, because morning erections are a sign that blood flow and vascular signaling are improving, not just sexual excitement. Now, let me talk about why this deficiency becomes so common after 60. As you age, your skin becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D from sunlight, even if you spend time outdoors. The kidneys, which activate vitamin D into its usable form, also become less efficient with age. Modern lifestyles keep seniors indoors more than ever. Digestion and absorption weaken, and chronic conditions like diabetes and obesity further reduce vitamin D availability in the body. This combination makes deficiency almost inevitable unless consciously corrected, and yet most men never test or supplement it until symptoms appear. When we address this deficiency, it must be done correctly and patiently. The right form is vitamin D3, also known as cholecalciferol, because it is better absorbed and more effective than D2. It should be taken with a meal that contains some fat, because vitamin D is fat soluble, and taking it on an empty stomach significantly reduces absorption. For most men over 60, a daily dose in the range of 1,000 to 2,000 IU is safe and effective, though higher doses may be used temporarily under medical supervision when levels are very low. This is not about taking large doses quickly, but about restoring balance gradually, because vascular repair takes time. It is also important to understand that vitamin D does not work in isolation. It requires magnesium to be activated in the body, and magnesium deficiency is extremely common in seniors, contributing to muscle tension, poor nerve signaling, sleep problems, and vascular stiffness. When magnesium is low, even adequate vitamin D cannot function properly, and this is why some men say, "I took vitamin D but felt no difference," because the supporting minerals were missing. Once this balance is restored, the body begins to respond more effectively. Over weeks and months, what usually improves first is energy and mood, followed by better sleep and improved morning erections, and later, improved erection firmness and duration during intimacy. This timeline is important to understand because erections after 60 do not improve overnight, but they do improve when the internal environment becomes healthier. Men who stay consistent often tell me that they feel more confident, less anxious during intimacy, and more emotionally connected with their partners because fear and pressure reduce erections just as much as poor blood flow. Another critical point I want to emphasize is that erectile difficulty after 60 is rarely just a sexual issue. It is often a signal of overall vascular health, and correcting vitamin D deficiency supports not just erections, but heart health, brain circulation, immune function, and metabolic balance. In many ways, improving erections is a visible sign that the body is healing internally. And this is why I always encourage men to look at this issue without shame, but with curiosity and responsibility. What I strongly caution against are so-called instant hardness pills sold online, which often contain unregulated stimulants, unsafe herbs, or hormone-like substances that can stress the heart, raise blood pressure, and worsen prostate issues, especially in older men. These products may create temporary stimulation but do nothing to repair blood vessels, and in the long term, they can cause more harm than benefit. A stable erection after 60 comes from restored circulation, not forced stimulation. Lifestyle still matters deeply. Vitamin D works best when combined with daily movement, even simple walking, proper hydration, good sleep, and control of blood sugar and blood pressure, because erections reflect the health of the entire system, not just one organ. Men who take care of these basics consistently respond far better than those who rely only on pills. Let me end by saying this clearly and respectfully. Wanting a firm erection at 60 or 70 is not vanity. It is a desire for connection, confidence, and vitality. And there is nothing wrong with that. The mistake is chasing shortcuts instead of supporting the body properly. When the most common deficiency is corrected, when circulation is supported, and when patience replaces panic, the body often surprises you with how well it can still respond. Because aging does not mean the end of intimacy. It simply means the rules have changed, and once you understand those rules, you can work with your body instead of against it.